Our first speaker this morning, Roy Eugene Davis, began his spiritual studies with his guru Paramahansa Yogananda in 1950 in Los Angeles, California. Mr. Davis is director of the Center for Spiritual Awareness, a New Era Enlightenment movement with world headquarters in Northeast Georgia and branches in several U.S. cities, Europe, and West Africa. He is author of many books, publisher of Truth Journal magazine, and a world-traveled speaker. We are living through a time phase unprecedented in human history. Evolutionary energies are currently becoming increasingly influential, resulting in mass spiritual awakening and rapid changes. Planetary wellness is a responsibility of every conscious person, and world enlightenment radiates from the individual. Here is a message of hope and faith for all who share the vision of possibilities and for all mankind. It's a quote from Our Awakening World, a recent book that Roy has written. And ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Roy Eugene Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, friends. When Tim called me a few months ago and asked me to participate in this program, I readily agreed. I'm glad I did. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad to be able to share this consciousness with you, and I welcome you this morning with love. Let's pause for a moment for a centering meditation, shall we? And just find that place within yourself where you can be centered and balanced. And as we do this, let us in our own way acknowledge the one life, being, power, and substance of the universe. Let us acknowledge the order of the universe, the divinity of every person, and the truth of our own inner being. For at this level, we are grounded in the unbounded field of consciousness out of which the universe unfolds and by which it is nourished. At this level, almost infinite capacities are resident within us. Peace. Our theme for this morning, our awakening planet. There is a benevolent power nourishing our universe, and we can learn to cooperate with it. I underscore cooperation. Not that we are to use the power, but rather we are to learn to be sufficiently knowledgeable and surrendered so that the power can use us. And how do we do this? We do this by study, that we might acquire understanding, that the knowledge which is already within us at the level of being might unfold into the conscious mind. And then by living as we are meant to live, consciously in harmony with the rhythms of the universe. We frequently say that consciousness is the only reality. It is on the one hand unmanifest, pure, unmodified, existence, incomprehensible to the mind, yet experienceable. And yet it is also manifesting outwardly as the world process. The initial unfoldment from the unmanifest field is what we refer to as the Godhead. In this initial unfoldment, there are characteristics and attributes which are later expressed throughout the universe. And out of this initial unfoldment, out of the Godhead, there streams forth a force, a creative force, the Word, which acts upon itself in almost infinite variety, making possible all of the planes, spheres, dimensions, and realms. And so the world in which we live, a play of cosmic forces, is really a drama made possible because of the interaction of life and nature, spirit and nature, and yet it has a common source. It is one thing appearing variously, and it is possible to discern this, to comprehend this. It is possible. We, as rays of pure consciousness, are identified while during this earthly sojourn with mind and body. And so we are human beings, combinations, blendings of spiritual qualities and material substance. But it is the beingness of us which is immortal, indestructible. We have come from deep inner space, and to that inner space we shall return. And to it we can return in meditation, during occasions of thoughtless contemplation, or those spontaneous moments of transcendence. But in this world, we are here to participate with the evolutionary process. We are part of this tremendous drama which is currently unfolding. And while we are involved outwardly, hopefully in a responsible manner, each one of us is on an inner journey to transcendence. Each one of us is growing, unfolding, expanding awareness. Eventually, our experience will be total illumination of consciousness. But obviously, while we are in this world, we have responsibilities. This world, we call it the material world, is just as important in the cosmic scheme as the subtle realms. It is here in this world that we can render our service and work out our personal salvation. It is possible for us, while embodied, while performing our duties in this world, to also awaken our spiritual capacities and to understand the total reality which consciousness is. If we look only outward, if we examine our world objectively, this can be useful up to a point, but we will only see the surface. We are also advised by seers to examine the nature of consciousness subjectively, to look beneath the surface, to look with the inner eye. And this we can do. And with clear intelligence, faculty of discernment, and awakened intuition, we can know that truth about life which results in our freedom, our ability to move easily and spontaneously through space-time. And while we live in the field of space-time, we can inwardly be anchored, established in eternity. That is, we can relate to the outer world of change, inwardly be stable and possessed of understanding. This is very important. This is our anchor in the shifting sea of circumstances in which we live. And just as we, as individuals, are unfolding, undergoing transformation, so the realm of nature is undergoing transformation. There are evolutionary forces at work. We can participate with them if we know how to, if we are willing to, if we are sufficiently surrendered, or we can neglect to participate with these forces, but the force of evolution will accomplish its purposes just the same. We can open ourselves to life and experience what mystics refer to as grace, the supportive, nourishing influence of life, which is always present. The question sometimes comes, frequently comes today, why is it that if man has been on the planet, some archaeologists say 300,000 years or more, at least 40,000 years as we know man to be physically, if man has been on the planet so long, why is it only in recently, perhaps the last 10,000 years, that we have evidence of in recorded history that man is expressing the higher values, that consciousness is more obviously unfolding through mind and consciousness? Well, just as we, in our growing up in the body, through the body, experience physical growth and hopefully emotional maturity and mental maturity and spiritual unfoldment, so now the species, having arrived at that point physically of a degree of maturity, is now undergoing emotional growth, mental unfoldment, and spiritual transformation. The physical body of man has not changed, obviously, in the past 40,000 years. But there has been changes occurring, there have been changes occurring in the brain and nervous system, because it is through the brain and nervous system that consciousness is processed. This is important to remember, and I'll get back to this in a moment, because I am convinced that while it is laudable for us to aspire to new era unfoldment, to see an ideal world and a harmonious civilization on planet Earth, it is important that we be prepared to play our role in such an ideal world. And if we are going to do this, it means that we have to be sufficiently awake and that our bodies have to be sufficiently refined and responsive so that soul consciousness can be processed through the brain and nervous system. We are currently, according to some sources, in an ascending cycle which is responsible for the mass awakening of consciousness. We have come out of the last dark age, and we are moving into what some refer to as an electrical cycle, which will be 2,400 years in duration, really 2,000 years in duration or more, because about 300 years have already transpired, during which time the majority of people on the planet will be able to acknowledge and utilize beneficially the forces in nature which formerly were not observed, magnetism, electricity, and so on. The age to follow of 3,600 years duration will be one during which the mental capacities of the majority of the people on the planet will unfold, and the era to follow that will be one of approximately 4,800 years, during which a goodly percentage of the people on the planet will be spiritually aware. But we are in an ascending cycle. The force of evolution is more evidential now in this present time phase. It has to do, and I don't have time to go into this in detail, it has to do with Vedic seers, with the movement of the sun and the planets about the sun, the movement of the sun around a body in space, and also the influences from the galactic center. But we can see all around us evidence of awakening of consciousness on the planet. And we can feel the stirrings within us at the soul level as we aspire to know the meaning of life. And we desire to surrender our impulses, our tendencies, even our unknowingness, in order that we might be more conscious and more responsive and more responsible to participate in our current awakening world. Tim mentioned when he presented me that I began my studies of spiritual matters some 40 years ago. I then met my guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. I was 18 years of age. I remember once talking with him. There were a group of young male disciples present, and he said, God's will. Now he was referring to this current trend, this evolutionary trend, which is responsible for transformation of planetary consciousness. He said, God's will prevail, no matter whether random individuals here and there elect to participate in the process or not. But then he said, how much better it is for us to participate with the process, because by so doing we can render useful service to humanity, and also, he said, your own spiritual evolution will be accelerated as a result. We are not in this movement for selfish purposes. But it is true that as we open ourselves to participate with an activity which is bigger than we are at the personality level, that we open ourselves to the forces which are influential in this transformation process. This will occur even if some individuals are not conscious of the process, and if some who are conscious of it are not willing to participate with it. This process will continue. We will see, as we have been seeing, increasing numbers of people awakening. It is my privilege to travel the world. I have lectured in Japan, Brazil, Europe, and West Africa. And wherever I have been, I have visited India, wherever I have been, I have seen in all of these countries evidence of this awakening of consciousness. It transcends the bounds of sectarianism. And of course, since many are initially awakening, many are still confused. So there is need for education. There is need for loving support. There is need for patience. There is need for deep inner work by every individual who feels called to be more actively involved in this process. I mentioned a few minutes ago that consciousness is processed through the nervous system. There are things that we can do to assist ourselves to be more functional. And you know what most of these procedures are. We can see to our emotional stability, our mental order, our physical wellness, our harmonious relationships. We can meditate deeply, surrendering ego sense in order to experience our higher real nature, which is consciousness. If we can live without accumulating stress, maintain a strong immune system, cultivate purity of mind, observe the basic rules of personal hygiene, eat correctly, natural foods in proper combinations suitable to our needs, and meditate, we can open ourselves to superconscious influences which are influential then in cleansing the mind and transforming, even restructuring the brain and nervous system. And as the brain and nervous system becomes more refined, our ability to perceive the finer aspects of the world in which we live and the inner side of nature improves. We move through different stages of soul awareness. At the unconscious level, even though we appear to others to be functional, and we may feel ourselves to be reasonably functional, we are really not very perceptive. We are motivated for the most part by the drives and the instinctual drives and tendencies and the belief patterns which have roots in the deeper levels of mind. We are largely the effect of outer causes. And then as we awaken a little bit and we live at the subconscious level, even while functional, we are more aware and yet subject to fantasy, making errors in perception. In other words, we are not as clear as we will eventually be. When we are conscious, as self-determined human beings, we are to a highly degree functional, able to establish priorities, cause effects, order our lives, contribute in intentional ways to our world. But even at this level, frequently there is a degree of unknowingness relative to the inner spheres and frequently ego drive. We do the best we can, but from that level of mere human consciousness, we are still limited in our perceptual abilities and in our understanding. The next stage is what is referred to as superconsciousness. That level of awareness which transcends unconsciousness, subconsciousness, and the ordinary conscious states. And now our intuition awakens. Our faculty of discernment is cleared, and we are able to perceive more clearly with greater accuracy. We are able to discern the inner side of nature. And now the superconscious influences invading the mental field, the brain and nervous system, is influential in weakening and then dissolving destructive drives and tendencies rooted in the mind, and clearing the clouds from the mind, further contributing to the awakening of soul consciousness. The next stage has been referred to by some as cosmic consciousness, or unity consciousness, an awareness really not only a belief, but an awareness that there is only one thing manifesting variously. At this level, we actually feel that life is a continuum, one thing expressing in infinite variety. And we feel this, we sense this. Our understanding may not yet be perfect, but we are more comfortable now in the universe. And we have this inward assurance that we are grounded in this life principle. And the next stage, as the result of further awakening, results in our ability to clearly comprehend the nature of reality this side of the unmanifest field, or that which we refer to as God, and the world process. This is the level of divine consciousness, or God consciousness, or true self-realization. And this is why some of the saints of many cultures have been able to say, wherever I look, I see God. It is possible to come to this place of understanding where everything we see and we know that we live in a world which is really a manifestation of a divine principle. And then it is possible to experience transcendence. Eventually, while in body, it is possible for us to have a brain and nervous system that is so refined that consciousness can be processed through it easily without interference, and we can simultaneously be aware of all levels of consciousness even while we are involved with our daily affairs. This is the ideal while we are embodied. Some think in terms of putting in their time in this world, making their contribution, and then leaving this world and experiencing the higher states in the subtle realms. But I affirm, and I only echo the words of teachers who have gone before, and teachers who are present with us, thankfully, on the planet, that it is possible to have this understanding while embodied. We are here to serve the cause of evolution. We are here to be conduits through which the one life can fulfill its purposes. Some of you perhaps saw on television, I hope you did, the series of, on PBS stations, the series of presented in which Bill Moyer discussed various matters with John Campbell. And his emphasis of following your bliss caught my attention. Following the heart, following the soul inclination, Because as we do this, we find our place in the universe. And we realize that we are here to learn, to grow, and to render service. And if we do this wholeheartedly, we find that the universe provides for us, that the universe supports us. This is something that is sometimes neglected. Now, I understand and I support this interest that increasing numbers of people have in healing the planet, in nurturing the planet. This is something we must do. This is our responsibility. But while we are doing this, we must also realize that this supportive influence, which has made possible the maintenance of the universe from its inception, is increasingly influential. It is active to not only maintain the universe, but to see to its transformation. This same supportive influence supports each one of us. Each life form in the universe is nourished by it. I believe it's important that while we do the best we can from whatever level of consciousness is ours at the moment, while we are as responsible as we can be, while we do all possible things outwardly to see to the education of others and to contribute to order on all levels, that we ourselves remember the importance of living also metaphysically. We do all of the physical things, but we also inwardly live metaphysically. We live from another level. We must realize, and we sometimes forget this, that because infinite capacities are ours because of what we are spiritually, that we can, after meditation, during our quiet interlude, before again being outwardly involved, we can rest for a few moments, and we can inwardly envision possibilities. We can exercise our imagination. We can train ourselves to see from within the world as it will be, as it can be. What do you see when you look out upon your world with inner vision? Can you see a world of harmony, a world of peace, a world without crime, a world without poverty? Can you see a planet which is no longer polluted? Can you see heaven on earth? Can you see order and an ideal environment for yourself, your children, for the people who will inhabit this planet 1,000, 5,000, 100,000 years from now? I can see that, and so can you with practice. Individually and together, using all of the understanding we currently possess and all of the tools at our disposal, we can accomplish much. But as we open ourselves to the supportive influence of the universe and let it direct our lives and let it express as it is naturally inclined to express, I am convinced that all things are possible.